Good evening and welcome. My name is Willie Smith, and I want to thank you for logging on, whether it's by Facebook or Zoom, and your interest this evening show that you are concerned about the health and welfare of not only your country, your community, and also your democracy. Let me first establish that this is a nonpartisan presentation. We are not here to tell you who to vote for. Our intent is to both inform and to inspire. To inform you regarding what all you need to know about mail-in voting, and to inspire you to engage in our electoral process. You know just as well as I, this is a crucial election, and it will greatly impact the future of our nation. Therefore, we want our archives to read when they pull this period of American history that we were not just spectating, but that we were active and we were participating. This evening, we're blessed to have two participants that are well able to get the point across and give us directions to ensure that we are well informed of the changes and to ensure that our votes count this year. First, we have a former state senator, Anastasia Pittman, and also field coordinator of Together Oklahoma, Jacoby Crawley. After their presentation, there will be questions taken, and so you can ask questions, so hold on to them, and we will respond, they will respond to them after they have given their presentation. So at this time, I'm going to turn you over to Senator Pittman, and she's going to get us going.
All right. Well, thank you, Pat. So grateful to be here and to have an opportunity, just a platform. I think COVID has given us some creative ideas on how we can communicate effectively because voter registration is at stake. So I'm always available to do the Vote Wise project where we come to various cities, try to make all 77 counties. We don't always get to go to all 77 counties to let people know there's a variety of groups that are underrepresented in the voting process. And so I'm here to talk about 17-and-a-half-year-olds getting registered to vote, veterans who are still abroad that need voter registration forms, those who are indigent and in assisted living centers and nursing homes who should also be included in voter registration processes, and just your regular, everyday, average working family member, people who are struggling through the pandemic with unemployment issues and back to school education issues. It's time for you to use your voice on a platform to get registered to vote, and we're going to show you how to do that. We're going to give you some websites, and we're just going to have a very candid conversation on what the Vote Wise Project can do and how you can access us and why we're still available to be a part of the process of telling people that voter suppression is real. And if you want your voices to be heard, you must go vote.
Hello, everybody. My name is Jacoby Crowley. I'm originally from Lawton, Oklahoma, in the southwest Oklahoma area. This is what I do for a living. I go out towards different organizations, different groups, and talk about voter engagement, talk about how can citizens be more effective in the aspects of using their voice when it comes towards voting. As like Senator Pittman said, we're going to talk about some extraneous topics, talking about 17-and-a-half-year-olds being able to vote. Also, we're going to be talking about absentee voting and the right practices and the right direction that we need to go moving forward in the November election. We are also familiar with this being today an election, so I think it's important, and kudos to any and everybody that is watching outside of Southwest Oklahoma area. There are some other areas that are having elections, I think in Tulsa and Duncan and some few other places. So we still want you to make sure that if you're in line to vote, make sure you stay in line to vote if you're watching this online. But make sure in talking about absentee voting, the right rules and regulations that are affected and connected towards moving forward and making sure that our community is moving forward, that everyone has the right to actually vote. And so there's some things and some regulations in place that we're going to be talking about that I'm just excited about in general. If you want to get into it or you got some questions for us, you want to just get right into it. All right, so the biggest thing that we're going to be talking about with the absentee voting, a lot of people, there's been a lot of questions about in the aspects of absentee voting is it required of the notary. I think that was something that we've been talking about. We've even had conversations about in general, and we found out that there were 3 elections throughout this COVID-19 pandemic that have been exempt towards the absentee ballot requirements. And those 3 elections were the primaries, which happened in the summer in June. Then you had the runoffs, which are today. And then you have the November election. Now, in those 3 particular elections that have been exempt by the governor and the state legislator, we still need to still understand that by law we are going to be required eventually in the future for other future elections to have your ballots absentee notarized. And that's just something to understand and know. What does that look like? What does a notarer look like? So an individual that is a notarer has a set limit on a traditional scale in an election. They usually have roughly around 12 ballots that are able to notarize on a traditional scale. But now, because of COVID-19, they have lifted those particular parameters for those rules and allowed those notaries to notarize anybody that they wanted to notarize. So the professional the wisdom that I can give you would be for the individuals that are used to getting absentee ballots in the mail, that are used to filling out their ballot and then putting it into the mail and then mailing it up, getting it notarized and put it into mail and then send it off. Continue those same practices. Why is it important to continue those same practices? Because you do not want to create bad practices when the state legislator or the governor can change it like that. I think it's important that we also have to cover ourselves. There's been some talking points about planning your vote, and I think this is important. You have to plan to vote. And in this process, in COVID-19, with individuals that may have pre-existing conditions, that may not want, are still scarce of the crowds and may not want to be around so many different things, I think it's important to have a strategic conversation about how can you still get your vote out and allowing your voice to be heard, but how can you practice in the best managed way in this particular situation by still making sure that your vote is counted. They're going to start releasing absentee ballots September the 18th. Am I correct on that? So September the 18th, roughly around September the 19th, is when you should start receiving absentee ballots in the mail. This is the kicker. Once you start receiving the absentee ballots in the mail, you have until the day of before the election to get it in. So you can hand deliver it. Some people receive their absentee ballots in the mail. I just requested mine today. You can get yours in. You can hand deliver it to the county election board, which is at the Comanche County Courthouse. If you're in Comanche County or somewhere within those ranges, you can go in there. You can hand deliver it a day before the election. If you wait until the day of the election, you will not be able to hand deliver your ballots unless they change that. Now, and I'm pretty sure. Say that again. So if you still have your mail-in ballot, this is what Senator Pittman said. If you still have your mail-in ballot, because a lot of people like to see those particular ballots, they like to have them with them just off of practice runs, just in case situations. So say for example, I want to get it, but I still want to go to my poll. All right. So when I get it, I don't necessarily have to fill it out, unless I fill it out and send it in. Don't go to your poll. Correct. Now, if you fill it out, but you don't send it in, and you waited till the last day to turn it in, and say it's election day, you forgot to turn it in, or you forgot to put it in the mail, and you forgot to turn it in general, you still have the option to go to your poll, whatever your distinct poll is, and go out and vote in that particular manner.
And just for clarification purposes, we want to make sure that you do know, just because you receive your voting ballot in the mail, if you want to mail it in at the last minute, the mail has to be received by 5 o'clock on Tuesday. And so you still can vote in person absentee 3 days prior to the election. And so when I tell you voter suppression is real, you cannot vote the Monday before elections anymore. You cannot vote on Sunday anymore. there was a time in our culture where the African American community would go vote on Sundays. And so taking our souls to the polls was very important because you could do early voting. If you're going to engage in vote by mail process, we're going to give you some websites so that you can request your ballot in the mail first, and they will send you a ballot with an envelope so that you can send it back inside of that envelope. Now this year, it's going to be green, so you're going to be able to identify ballots coming through the mail, which is supposed to help the postal facilities expedite that mail. So the ballots normally come sealed in a ballot with a return envelope, and you can put your address on it, seal it, and return it after you've notarized your ballot. As Mr. Crawley has said, your ballots do not have to be notarized due to the pandemic. I'm going to tell you from past experience, if you have access to a notary, notarize your ballot. Don't change your practice. Don't teach 17-and-a-half-year-olds that they don't need a notary this election, but need a notary in 2 years. Stick to the plan, and that's why we're here to talk about developing a voting plan. You want to be able to know that you've requested your ballot, and you want to know the election or the voter registration deadlines, which is in the first week of October. So 23 days prior to an election is your last day to register to vote. So if we're voting on November 3rd, 23 days prior to November 3rd is your last day to register to vote, but it's not your last day to request your ballot to come to you in the mail. So let me give you that website. You can go to www.ok.gov/elections with an S /voter info, voter_info. Okay, and it will ask you, are you a registered voter? You can put your address in. You can request your absentee ballots in the mail. Now, the tricky part is when you request your absentee ballots in the mail, it's going to ask you for what election cycle. If you just put in 2020, you will get all of your ballots for the entire year. Now, the trick to that is requesting your absentee ballots at the beginning of the year and say for the entire year, so you can get your school board election ballots, your city council election ballots, any major ordinance that's coming up for a vote. You will not miss it because you will receive that ballot in the mail. Now, the good news in voting by mail is you get the ballot 30 days prior to the election. It's going to be late this year. We already know the mail is behind. So if you're going to request your absentee ballots, request them in the mail now. We have churches and civic organizations and youth groups, the NAACP, we have the Divine Nine. All these groups have been registering people to vote. That's just the first step to the plan. The second step is to request your ballot in the mail. We call it a know before you go, because people have been voting for years. They take pride in voting since they were 18. However, we're not always educated on the state questions. This general election will have state question 805, which is our social justice reform state question. And we have county seats, general election seats, statewide seats. When you have a presidential campaign, generally there are other presidential candidates that you don't even know about, and you don't see them until you show up on election day, and then you feel uninformed. We want you to know before you go. Now, to practice social distancing when you vote, when you go vote, if you want to do an in-person absentee, even after you've received your ballot in the mail, that's okay too. People will bring your ID or your voter registration card to the county election board 3 days prior, which is the Thursday, Friday, and Saturday before November 3rd. They will bring your ballot to the car. You can fill it out in the car, then you can send it back on a clipboard, and you did not have to stand in line, and you did not have to be accessed by people in less than 6 feet of social distancing. So what we want to do is make sure you make a plan to go vote. So if you and your entire family request your ballots in the mail, then you can sit around the dinner table and the coffee table and educate yourselves on looking up candidates, looking at their websites. You can talk about how you feel about social justice reform and the state question that's going to be on the ballot. Then you can vote together. We can get you in contact with notaries. Notaries are also located at your banks. You can go to your local banks, but there should not be a restriction at this election on how many ballots a notary can notarize, because we have suspended notaries even having to notarize your ballots. There's no charge for the notary, so please don't pay anybody to notarize your ballots. But we want to make sure you are educated and informed that you can vote by mail, you can vote in person absentee, and you can vote on election day at your local precinct. If you have lost your voter registration card, it's okay to re-register. They'll send you a new card in the mail, and that's really all you need to go vote. People really shouldn't ask you for a photo ID. Some people do not drive. They don't have driver's licenses. We used to could use a variety of IDs. If you were military, you could use your military ID. If you're tribal, it's federal ID. You can use that too. It's a photo ID that matches your name. But if you do not have a photo ID because you're no longer a registered driver and you just have a state ID, it cannot be expired. So people are coming to the election polls on election day with expired identifications. Bring your voter registration card. If you have any problems on site, ask for that poll watcher to call the election board. Do not leave that location without filling out a ballot. Even if they tell you your ballot is not going to count, do a provisional ballot vote where they seal your vote and they will count your vote after the election. This particular election process will, for the general election, will receive ballots after the election due to COVID and due to the Postal Service pandemic as well.
So let me do a brief recap before we go on. So the ballots, the mail-in ballots, will be coming out September 18th, correct? And once they come out, we are recommending and we're encouraging people to get them notarized and to stay in practice. However, there's also will be on there, you can also have your photo ID, copy of that in there, or a copy of your voter ID, okay? Also, when you was talking about mailing it in, they also have the option of taking it into the county clerk as well, right? To turn that in as well. So those that may not, and the state election board. So those that may not be comfortable with the post office service at this time, if they want to be more sure, they can take it to the county clerk and turn it in that way as well. So that's great to know. Also, just want to let you know that our early voting starts October the 29th and also the 30th and the 31st. So again, early voting starts 29th of October, the 30th of October, and the 31st of October. Okay. All right. Hopefully we're clear on that. If not, just hold your questions. We'll allow you to ask them. But right now I want to talk about what about those that have had a felony or a crime, or can they still vote? And if they can, what are the stipulations?
Yes, you can vote. And that's something that I think that voter suppression is really real. And when it comes towards miseducation, a lot of individuals that feel that because they have had past criminal history, they cannot vote. In the state of Oklahoma, we have restored the rights towards individuals who have done all of their due time within whatever their sentences may be. They have done all their time. So let's say, for example, if you were sentenced to roughly around 7 years, and you did 2 of those 7 years, you still have 5 years to complete on probation of whatever those probationary terms may be. After that time is complete and you have done your particular service, then you will be able to register to vote on that last day of whenever you pay your last dues or whatever that may look like. So that's just something that you have to understand. And moving forward, that's something that in the state of Oklahoma we have allowed for individuals to practice in, because we have a high incarceration rate in this state. And so I think that we have a lot of individuals who are going to be in that particular circle or that particular process. So individuals that you may know of, your nieces, your uncles, your cousins, your brothers, so your sisters, whatever, if they have prior criminal history, they still have the opportunity to vote off of that.
I certainly agree with Brother Jacoby, but I want to make sure you are clear. If you have a deferred sentence, it is not a felony, so you did not lose your right to register or your right to vote. So please know your rights. If you are voting and if you are a convicted felon, we call it ex-offender. Once you've paid your debt to society, Oklahoma has restored your right to vote. So it's up to you to be responsible enough to calculate the language that you're supposed to understand. If you have a sentence and you have a certain amount of years to complete, you cannot vote during that time. You cannot register during that time. So people will say, well, you can register even after you finish your time on paper. Well, let's be clear. Some people are released on an early release. You may be finished with your obligation with the Department of Corrections, but you're not finished with your obligation to the state of Oklahoma. So do not register ahead of your sentence being complete, because there is a 5-year felony penalty for that. So you must calculate your times, because if you were incarcerated and you got good behavior for so many months, for days out of the month, that's time off of your time served. Then you get released for good behavior. That's time off of your time served. You're still not obligated to the Department of Corrections, but you are obligated to the state of Oklahoma to complete your entire sentence, and then the next day you can register to vote. Some people who are given a ballot when they are being released, we have a release program where judges will tell you one thing, DAs come and talk to you, officers come and talk to you, but at the end of the day, you have to have someone in the legislature speak with you as well, because you do not want to register. And people assume that because the tax commission gives you a ballot, because it's now practice from the tax commission, and the Department of Human Services will give you a ballot, because most of our ex-offenders upon release will go to DHS so they can get food stamps, or they will go to the tag agency because they bought a car or they're registering a car. They will automatically give you a ballot. It does not mean that you are still eligible just because they gave it to you. You may be on probation and should not fill it out until you have completed your entire obligation to the state of Oklahoma. So it's up to you to know your eligibility date. And you cannot vote if you have a life sentence and you are on parole. Just because they let you out and you had a life sentence, you're not eligible to register to vote unless you get a pardon. Unless you get a pardon, if you have a life sentence and you are on parole and you've been out on parole for 10 years, if you do not have computation or pardon, you still can't register to vote until that offense has been removed. So voting is a right, it is a privilege, and the significance of knowing whether or not you can vote as an ex-offender is because the state of Oklahoma, and these are the secrets that they don't tell you, that's why we're here teaching the Vote Wise Project, is 10 years after you have completed your sentence, you can run for office too. Your obligation has been removed. Your debt to society has been paid. You've been a registered voter. You haven't had any problems. You can put your name on the ballot just like we do because you're a product of your environment. If you want to represent that community because you got a new start and you change your life around, the state of Oklahoma will allow you to become a candidate. So there is a second chance for you to be an active and participating citizen in the state of Oklahoma.
Let's talk about real quick.
Sure.
Something to that. Individuals that are being indicted for a particular case but have not yet been charged, they are still eligible to register to vote and then also vote. As long as if they're convicted of that particular charge, they do not vote within the stance of when they are charged. So, say for example, if I have a court case, that's tomorrow and election day is today, and I may get charged, tomorrow, and that's on a Wednesday or whatever. I go in, I can vote. I'm a registered voter. But as soon as you are charged for that particular case, then your voters, when you're convicted of that particular case, your votes, your particular rights are restricted on that. So understand that in general, even individuals, and I mean, you may not. Some people curse when you say this. Individuals that are in the county right now that are they're indicted, but they have not been convicted of a particular anything. They have the right to go and say, "I want to go vote," and they can go vote. It's something that people do not realize or understand in that process. And it's still considered a right because you are innocent until proven guilty. And until that verdict is come down on you, you still have the option within your rights.
So let me try to simplify. Say a person got 7 years, and they got 7 years, September the 1st, 2020. Okay, so that means they cannot vote until September the 2nd, 2027. Is that correct? They got charged September the 1st, 2020. And so 7 years later, and the day after, they get to the day after. Now, what if they get out on parole? What if they get out early? They still have to wait that complete 7 years. And that's what we need to make clear. You have to go through the complete sentencing, the complete time in order to vote. Thank you very much. One more time, did you all talk about how to submit a mail-in ballot? Have we spoken about that?
I don't think we talked about
Yeah, let's talk about that. Who wants to deal with that?
So the way to actually submit your absentee ballot, you fill it out. If you decide to get it notarized, you can get it notarized. They are asking for a photo ID, a copy of your photo ID, or a copy of your voter ID.
No, I was talking about the application.
Oh, okay. My bad. I'm sorry, but I don't think we talked about that either. But yeah, you can go to elections.ok.gov and go to. And it will have information for you to go there. And once you get in there, you go to, I have it right here, you go to your OK voter portal. You can go on that particular structure. And then it will have, once you get on there, it'll ask different types of, the instructions that you want to do. Do you want to register to vote? Do you want to do this? Do you want to do that? And then you can click on a request for your absentee ballot. It will take you through the application process. I just did it for this particular election itself, and it was very extreme, very easy. Didn't take me a lot of time. I put in my information. It already had my voter information in there, and then from there, it sends a particular message to the county election board. It goes directly to, in Comanche County, her name is Mrs. Amy. Once she's connected within that, then she will send the ballot to you. It's very synced, very easy, very direct, not hard at all. Once you receive your particular ballot, like they said, you will have until the day before the election. So say for that, today is the election, you would have to send it in by Monday in order for you to get your ballot counted on. Election.ok.gov.
I want to touch on a couple of things too. You also have a sample vote. You can pull your sample ballot up online as well. So as Jacoby was speaking earlier about filling out the form to register to vote, to request your absentee ballot, there are two things you need to know. If you are a armed forces service representative or a veteran, there's a specific form that's different from that request form that you need to fill out. You can download these, you can print them out, and you can make copies of them. Because if you are a caregiver, you can fill that request for absentee ballot out for the caregiver, and there's a place for you to sign it on the back. Two things you need to know: whether it's a request for absentee ballot for yourself, or are you requesting it for someone else because you are their primary caregiver. There is a line for your voter registration address. They will pull that address, but there's a second line that you can fill out to have your ballots mailed to wherever you're going to be. I don't want any excuses about you not being able to vote on November 3rd. If you're going to be at Grandma Gigi's house, then mail your ballot to her house. There's a second line that says, where do you want the ballot to be mailed to? If that's a separate address from your voting address or the voting where you're registered to vote, mail that ballot to where you're going to be, so that if you are on vacation or you have a family emergency and you know that you're not going to make it back home by November 3rd, have that ballot mailed to you wherever you're going to be, because it will come. Now, we know the mail is going to be slow this year. Request it early. But I also want to talk to you about getting, we don't have in the state of Oklahoma online registered voting. Now we have implemented a online voting process where they are going to simplify voter registration, because now this is voter suppression. People can't go out and just set up tables and set up shop and register to vote, and it doesn't matter how many people's in line. You have to wear masks, you have to social distance, you have to have hand sanitizer. So if you want to register to vote, they will mail you a voter registration form. You can go online and it says simplifies your voter registration, which is okvote.gov, okvote.gov. And the first step is to enter your information required by the Oklahoma voter registration application. And you can use a cell phone or laptop or iPad, whatever you need to do. Step 2, we will mail you your printed application along with a pre-addressed postage paid envelope within 24 hours. So let's say within 48 hours, because there's got to be some turnaround time. So what they're going to do is put a ballot in the mail, and they're going to send you an envelope that's already with the postage paid for you to return it after they receive your information. Step 3, sign it and date it on your application in the section that's highlighted in the yellow, and it's going to be in the lower right-hand portion of that form. So you can request an application to register. They're going to mail you the voter registration form, and they're going to send you an envelope to send it back in. Step 4, put the signed and dated form back in the envelope and take it to any mailbox. The postage is already paid. Now, just a little tidbit of information. The voter registration form is very simple. It only takes 5 minutes to fill it out. But there are 2 questions that confuse people. It will say required voter driver's license. So they will ask you for your driver's license number, but in the fine print it says or the last 4 digits of your social. I'm asking you to register people to vote and use the last 4 digits of your social. Everybody doesn't have a driver's license, so I don't want them to leave it blank and do not use the last 4 digits of their social and then go to the polls thinking that you are a registered voter. You will not be on the books. Also, one of the things we have to do to be responsible is if we have a deceased family member who will not be voting during the election, you can contact the state election board and ask them to remove that person's name. They are deceased. This decreases voter fraud for people accidentally signing on the wrong lane, on the wrong line. We need poll watchers that look like us, poll watchers from our own communities, so that people can tell you that even if you support whatever candidate you support, you cannot walk into that precinct with that candidate's t-shirt on. You got to cover it up. Turn it inside out, wear it backwards, bring a new t-shirt, put it on top. Whatever it is, you cannot come into that precinct with that candidate's information on you, because it's almost like you're influencing what someone is going to choose or decide. You also need to know that because of COVID and because of polling relocation places, you may have two polling locations located in the same building. They will not tell you to get in the other line. If you've waited in that line and they say, we don't have you on these books, you need to ask, is this my precinct? So they can tell you, it's not this line, it's the line over here, because you'll leave without voting. And even if you're in the wrong precinct and you want to vote, ask for a provisional ballot. Ask them to tell you, because when voting precinct polls change, they're not required to put it in our local newspapers or do a PSA. They're only required to post it on the window of the place that you came to vote. They do not even tell you where the voting location has moved to. So let's be educated, let's be informed, because this is why we want you to vote wise on November 3rd. Yes. A provisional ballot is where you may come into some discrepancies with your ID. Some people get married, some people change their last name, or some people registered more than once. You may have a Willie B. Smith Sr., a Willie B. Smith Jr., a Willie B. Smith III, and you didn't put it on there. You just put Willie B. Smith, and now your ID is saying, I'm Willie B. Smith Jr. So you have some people that will say, well, this is not the exact same, but your own poll watchers know you've been voting in the same place for years. They know where you live. They know who you are. They're part of your community. They can attest to your identification. But if you have someone that says, nope, you just said Willie Smith, it doesn't say Willie B. Smith, it doesn't say Willie B. Smith Jr., but your ID says Willie B. Smith Jr. So this is not the same. We're not going to let you vote. We're not going to give you a ballot, because we want to be sure we're doing the right thing. Do not leave that polling location without requesting a provisional ballot. Vote anyway. Put it in a golden envelope. They will seal it and put it in another stack. It will not go in the electronic voting machine to be counted on that day. It will be counted, but those provisional ballots will go to the local county election board. In Oklahoma City, you can ask for Doug at our Oklahoma County Election Board. The number is 405-713-1515. 713-1515. So each county has some rules about provisional ballot voting, but do not leave. It is your right. And some people feel like asking them for their driver's license or their ID is a poll tax, because now I got to go pay $20 for a new driver's license because you wouldn't allow me to vote. And I've been cashing my checks and doing all my business with my voter ID, with my registered ID. As long as your ID is not expired, you tell people your name, they say, may I have your ID, please? Give them your voter registration card, because on your voter registration application, it does not require you to have a driver's license. You can use the last 4 digits of your Social Security number. So even if when you're registering to vote, you're not required to use a photo ID to register. So if you do not have a photo ID, it's best that you have one. But if you need a new voter registration card, you don't know where it is, re-register, make them send you one so that you know you have not been purged off the voter registration log. If you don't only vote in general elections and you only vote every 4 years, your name may not still be on the books. So let's not take that for granted, because they can purge it and say this person hasn't voted in the last 2 election cycles and we're going to remove their name from this log. Re-register if you can't find your card. Your card is going to tell you your Senate district number, your House district number. It's going to tell you your congressional district number, and it's going to give you the address to your polling location so that you don't have to guess.
All right, great information, a lot of information. We're going to, as promised, allow you to ask some questions, but before you ask your question, I have one I want to ask him, and then you all can ask. One thing I do want to say, there are already places that's going to notarize right now. You can go to City National Bank, and they'll notarize, and they'll do it to where you just can drive up to the drive-through, and they'll do it right there. The NAACP, the president is here, Reverend Perry, and he's already said NAACP will be notarizing as well. We'll give you dates on that. And there's other local churches that's going to be doing the same. So we're going to make sure that you can be sure. You just make sure you stay out there listening and know where you can get your notary. I want to ask real quick before others ask the question, just real short, anybody can. How does one become a poll watcher? What do they have to do? Real quick.
Okay, yeah. Oh, well, I can let Mr. Crawley do it. But you can sign up at your county election board. They'll select you, and there's a training that you have to go to, and you get paid to be a poll watcher. So you can be a senior citizen, 65, and be a poll watcher, go get the training, and they'll tell you what to look for and what you need to know so that people actually get to vote properly. But I'll let him tell you about his mom.
Did you? Okay.
I can add, just elaborate just a little bit. Yes, so they'll, especially here, they'll give you a CD that you need to watch, and then you have to basically take a little questionnaire over the particular questions that are provided off of the training itself. Once that is complete, they'll direct you towards what precinct they want you to go to, and then from there, you become a poll watcher. I think it's important to have more people that look like us that are poll watchers outside of our traditional areas, but also in areas in which doesn't matter exactly where they particularly send you at, but we need to have more individuals because when you see more individuals that look like you, you'll be more encouraged to go and walk into those doors and actually do your civil duty.
We do apologize for those that are on Facebook. We won't be able to get your questions, but those of you that are on Zoom, you have any questions, unmute yourself and go ahead and ask your question.
Yes, this is Anthony Hickel. I have a question. First of all, my first question is the county clerk's office and the state election board. These are places where you can take your ballot. Are they in the same location, or are those two different locations?
Thank you for your question, and thank you so much for tuning in. This is so important, and we want people to have accurate information. And the question was, where you can drop your ballots off is the county election board or the court clerk's office, and are these two agencies located in the same place? The answer is no. So you can return your election ballots to your local county election office. You can also mail them in to the state election board, which is in the basement of the state capitol. But you can pick up voter registration forms from local libraries, your tag agency, the tax commission, but places to drop them off are limited. And so that's why this question is so important. They are not located in the same place, but call your county election board and ask them what time will they stop receiving your ballots. Because even if you mail your ballot in the day before, if you got a 2-day turnaround and your ballot's not going to be received by Tuesday at 5 o'clock, polls close at 7, but the mail stops at 5 because they close their doors at 5. So you need to make sure what time your mail picks up and what time your mail delivers. Don't wait till the day before to hand it in. If you're going to wait till the day before, you might as well vote in person absentee at the state election board, at the county election board.
On that same question, that same vein, can I take in someone else's ballot for them?
No, you cannot take someone else's ballot in for them. Now, if they are indigent care, there is a witness line that can be signed for their ballots to become valid. Senior citizens don't have to have notarized ballots. They have to have witnesses because they live in a facility. Those ballots can be turned in at that facility, but you do not want to harvest ballots, and you do not want to turn in someone else's request for a ballot to be received in the mail. Unless it's one agency taking in all of their members and they're mailed in one envelope, then you can do that. But it's easier to just drop them off at the state election board or do it online. But you cannot take someone else's ballot in for them or turn their ballot in for them. And we suggest that you don't even request someone's ballot for them unless you are the designee or the legal guardian for that person.
One moment real quick, and that also brings me to the next, the connection with this is also voter parties. That also is important to talk about because a lot of people don't really know what that is. So if me, Senator Pittman, and Pastor Smith decided, hey, we want to have a voter party together, bring your ballot. Once we've all of us have requested our absentee ballots, we received them within our mail. We came together and set a set date to come together and talk about our voter ballots and fill them out together and deliberate on them, and then from there put them into the mail. You can actually do that. That is a legal way of actually being able to get your vote across and actually be informed about it, as well as getting your vote in. I actually do recommend that. If it's not, you can do a voter party through Zoom, which is a great creative way to do it now in the 21st century, of talking about particular candidates, deliberating on particular things, getting great ideas, because I think that it's important to be educated and informed on not just information and issues, but also candidates. And once you inform yourself and educate yourself, you're able to have a direct decision on what you want to make and put your vote towards, and then move forward in that particular direction. So voter parties is the particular thing, and is really good.
Second question, Dr. Kegler. Yes.
Physically disabled and you request an absentee ballot that you have to mail it in, you can
Please repeat that so that Facebook.
Okay, so your question is there a group of people that absolutely has to do mail-in ballots because they are physically incapacitated or have some impediment to taking their ballots in? The answer is yes. You have senior citizens all across the state who don't physically go to the polls. Now, you do have two options. If you can travel and someone can put you in your car, we provide rides to the polls all across the state. That person does not have to get out of their car even when they go to the state election board or to the county election board for in-person absentee. That's the whole purpose of having you have an opportunity to vote 3 days prior to the election day. And you don't have to get out of your car. You give them your ID, they take it in, they pull that ballot for your particular area, and they bring the ballot back to the car on a clipboard. You fill it out, you vote it, they give you your I voted sticker, they go turn your ballot in for you. Now, there are people in rural areas of Oklahoma that are not incapacitated. They too can mail their ballots in. You have options. You can request your ballots in the mail. You can get them to have your voting parties and educate yourselves. And then you can still go vote on election day. You don't have to turn that ballot in just because it came in the mail. I will caution you, If you are having a family gathering or a vote watch party, you can have a watch party where you're talking about voting and issues. Do not take a picture of your ballot and post it on Facebook. People will post what candidate they voted for. We're not here to influence your vote. We're here to mobilize and educate you to vote. So you cannot do that. It is illegal to post who you voted for on Facebook. And because people don't have all the Facebook rules, they don't know that. So don't, even if you show your ballot and you hold it up and you say, I voted, you can hold it up without filling it out, or you can turn it around backwards, or you can have it far away enough from the camera that people can't just determine who you voted for, because we cannot influence the vote like that, but we are here to educate and mobilize the vote, because it's another form of voter suppression if you don't know who you're voting for. And to be quite honest, people hold African American candidates to a higher standard by saying, well, you only come around during election time. Well, you've been voting since you was 18, but your city council person doesn't come around, your county commissioner person doesn't come around, and so your congressional candidates don't knock on your door. You vote a lot of times without knowing who these people are, and we're educating you and informing you to tell you to stop doing that, because if we start voting in blocks, your vote becomes more powerful. African American base is the swing vote. You can take people out and you can put people in, but they have taken your vote for granted. And we're here to tell you that if you want to change something in your community, it starts by voting for your policymakers so that the policy changes, not just a protest. We want you to move past the protesting to enforcing the policy changes that you need for your community.
Are there any other questions? Sure. Yes, that's Kathy. Yes, go ahead, Kathy. And I got you, Mr. Lindsay. We got you.
Let's go with Kathy first.
Yeah, Brother Lindsay. So we'll go with Kathy. Go first. Oh, you're fine.
My apologies. I just know what my options are. I'm a resident of to Oklahoma, so I'm not legally an Oklahoma resident yet. So is my only option mail-in, or what other options do I have?
Yes, if you are not a registered voter in Oklahoma, you can request an absentee ballot from your home state, and you can send that ballot in back to that state until you become a registered voter here. Now, if you do a change of address and voter registration form here, you have until the first week of October to do that. And you can vote here and still vote by mail or vote in person absentee or vote on election day, because you will receive your voter registration card in the mail. When we do the VoteWise project, we have you fill out both forms together, the voter registration form first and the request for absentee ballot in the mail form, so that they register you to vote and then they send it to you in the mail when they send you your voter registration card. But the deadline to register to vote, I believe, is October the 9th.
Was that clear, Kathy? Okay. Mr. Lindsay, your question.
Yeah, the question I had was, you talked several times about voter suppression and things like that, and one of the things that you don't leave the polling station. So, talking about voter suppression, I would ask, what are just a few examples that, and I know there's several out there, I'm not going to get all of them, but what are just a few examples, and what the overarching answer for that is? The overarching answer is staying at that polling station.
Yes, that's correct. Make sure that you stay at your polling place until that issue is resolved. And also, like Senator Pittman said, make sure that you fill out what's it called? A provisional ballot. to make sure that your ballot is still, your voice is still heard in that aspect. The different examples of voter suppression go way back. But one of the biggest, examples towards voter suppression in connection with absentee voting is talking about how many harvest votes and fraudulent votes can be counted towards a particular individual or towards a particular candidate. In the state of Oklahoma, in the past 10 years, we have only had roughly around, I think, 2 cases of fraudulent voting throughout our particular 10-year history when it comes towards voting itself. And the longer you go, those cases, even those percentages even go smaller and smaller. In the nation itself, that percentage is even smaller. So understanding that when people are talking about, when they're talking about the suppression of the vote and things like that, that comes a bigger point, because a lot of that is just cat whistling of trying to limit, more people from not being able to vote itself. Talking about IDs and requirements of IDs of people to come in and actually being able to vote. A lot of people don't drive. So when you're asking driver's license and things like that, a lot of people don't have those particular informations or those particular things for them to be required. So that becomes another level of suppression when it comes towards the vote itself.
And I would suggest that also, if the line is long, bring some lunch. Yeah. Plan on the long haul. So I think that's also something you're referring to, because I don't know, sometime they were saying that some of the poll workers may be, the numbers may be limited. And so you may have to wait a little longer. And so, hey, bring lunch, be prepared to stay for a while. I don't know if we'll have that problem in Lawton, but in some of the larger cities may have that issue.
Also, Brother Lindsay, one of the things that is more prevalent is the relocation of the voter locations. So people will not know that their precinct has moved because they didn't vote in the primary and they didn't know it was a runoff. So when they go to where they've always gone before, it has been moved. And you can request that a voting location be moved. People move voting locations from libraries to YMCAs to churches because a group of people went to the election board and said, we want an election board in our area. We want a precinct location in our area. And they will fill out the paperwork. The county election board will approve it. And that voting location precinct has been moved, and nobody put it in the paper. We didn't tell any civic groups. And so it's not until election day that you get there and you find out that your precinct location has been moved. So the answer to your question is yes. Do not leave. Stay until you have received a provisional ballot. Make your poll watcher work for you. The poll watcher is there to ensure that everyone has the right to vote. So ask the poll watcher to call the election board that they work for and say, I got an issue, send somebody, or tell them what to do over the phone, because I'm not leaving until I vote. They will then find your location for you, or they will tell you, go ahead and fill out a provisional ballot. You get to take it into your booth, fill it out privately, you fold it up, and you will seal it yourself. You don't hand the open ballot to someone when you're doing a provisional ballot. So voter suppression can also be done through the census, and hopefully we'll let Dr. Crawley talk about that. But when you don't fill out the census and your population becomes dense, then where the larger populations go, that's when the numbers get skewed to federal dollars coming into your community. So you don't get lights and roads and bridges and paved streets and sidewalks. You get flowers at universities because somebody started registering their census at their university and not at their home. And the one thing I want to say about census too is you have a lot of multicultural people. I'm Native American and African American. So when I fill out the census, I check American Indian, and I put the Seminole Nation of Oklahoma, and I check African American. And a lot of people send in their census records early, and they don't check that they have Cherokee or Seminole or Choctaw or Creek in them. But if you're in Oklahoma, 9 times out of 10, somebody in your family had a native heritage, and you want the census to be able to count you for that, so that your legacy and your lineage is documented by a legal document, because you've heard the stories orally, and now it's time for you to step up and decide whether you're going to honor that indigenous culture or not. So we've got to be mindful that voter suppression is everywhere, and it's even when you change the dates. We used to vote Friday, Saturday, and Monday, the day before election, and now we vote on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, and not on the Monday. So you've lost Sunday and the Monday to vote. So times can change, places can close early, because even when you vote in person absentee on a Saturday, it's not until 6 o'clock in the evening like it is on Thursday and Friday. The county election board is open till 6, from 9 to 6, but on Saturday it's open from 10 to 2. And so you have until 2 o'clock to vote on that Saturday, not until 5 or 6 o'clock in the evening.
Who's identify yourself? Oh, that's Dr. Owens. Yes. And she said yes. Yes, it will.
You must request it annually.
Annually. It must be requested annually. Okay. All right. Yeah, listen, we've gone over our hour. Listen, I hope something was said to motivate you. I know I've been educated and informed, and our presenters are just excellent, a wealth of knowledge and inspiration. So I applaud you both. Again, kind of keep your eyes out there. We're going to be giving you dates for notaries and places of location for notaries. NAACP, like I said, churches, and also you can go to City National Bank and just go through the drive-through. But the whole thing is just get involved. Let's vote. Let it be said that we spoke, we responded, and we let our conviction be known through our ballots. So get involved in the process. Before we end, I do want Jacoby to talk a little bit about the 2020 census, and he's going to do that, and then we're going to close out.
All right. So thank you again for this opportunity. I think it's a great opportunity for each and every individual to be engaged and educated on information that is right there at their fingertips, that is required because they're a citizen and they should know. So I just want to thank the opportunity for Bethlehem for putting this on, as well as Pastor Smith, as well as Senator Pittman for coming in as well. Briefly, I was just talking to y'all the importance of filling out your census. As you know, federal dollars throughout this city and throughout this state is important. And so it's really important that we advocate in pushing everybody to fill out their census. If you have not filled out your census, you can do so now. You can fill out your census by either going to the city website, or you can go to the Census Bureau and be able to fill out your census in that particular capacity. They're having mediators actually right now going out and knocking on doors and talking to each individual person that has not filled out their census and making sure that those opportunities are presented towards themselves. The city of Lawton has provided an opportunity for the city to have a census week. So from Sunday until Saturday of next week, you will see a lot of census stuff. You'll start seeing census at the stores. You'll start seeing census information at different particular locations. Those locations will be provided for each particular day. I know that the Patterson Center and the Owen Center and the H.C. King Center will be 3 locations that will be provided towards individuals to come in on various time frames to come in and fill out their census if they need help filling out their census. Individuals that do not work for the census still can help you fill out their census. They just are going to tell you that they are not an employee by the Census Bureau. And if within your permission, if you allow, they will still be able to help you out with the census. It is important that we have a full percentage of 100% that everyone is able to do that. I received a few informational calls, and knowing that Fort Sill and a few other particular areas are not doing great on the response rates towards the census. So individuals that are military personnel and active duty, if now in these particular census dates, you have to fill out your census at the direct location that you're staying at now. So if you're stationed in Fort Sill, you need to fill out your census for Fort Sill and not Virginia, if that is your home state. Just some information to know, just like Senator Pittman, she talking about me. Senator Pittman talked about off of, getting flowers in, coming in the universities and things like that because of those students filling out their census at those particular locations and have been putting down those particular addresses. It's important that your students, if your kids are filling out their census at Langston or other particular universities, that they're put their direct address and not the address of where they're at. And one of the reasons why, because we want those federal dollars to come into our particular community. We're looking at billions of dollars in the state of Oklahoma, millions of dollars in the city of Lawton. And if individuals do not decide to fill out their census, what you will have more individuals in the room with less money to go around. And so I think it's important for these next 10 years, and this not just off of the finance part, but we're going to look at too, congressional districts. We have lost a congressional district due to our last failures of individuals not filling out their census. And I think it's important that moving forward, when it comes towards representation at the state, at our nation's capital, we have to make sure that we're doing the right thing as citizens when it comes towards the things that we need to do in order for those things to be moved forward in the right direction. So if you haven't filled out your census, make sure you fill it out. You will have an opportunity to do that next week, and I'm pretty sure Bethlehem will have something connected with that as well. So you'll still have an opportunity to do that. This is just and the deadline for the census is actually September 30th. So you have roughly around from this week, roughly around a month to fill out the census. And there's going to be a large push, a large effort towards getting as many people responded as possible. That deadline has been pushed even closer than what it was. I think it was roughly around November. Yeah. And now, they push it even closer. So I think it's important now that, everything, the time is not, for us, it's against us. So we have to make sure that we are moving in those particular efforts.
Also, again, what is the site?
So you can go to census, I think it's, 2020 census. So, www.2020census, and you'll be .org, and you'll be able to fill out your census in that particular directed area. And if you cannot find that particular website, it should be easy to pull up. But if you cannot find, you can go to the City of Lawton website, and they have the census link that you can fill out your census directed there. All right?
All right, great. I knew you weren't going to let me go, Donna Thompson. I knew you weren't going to go. Go ahead. Right. We covered that. We did, and we made sure I even gave them. Okay. So as Donna Thomas was saying, if you have any questions or concern about whether you can vote as an ex-felon, just call this number, 405-209-6750. Again, 405-209-6750. With that, we're going to, okay, one more. Okay. Okay. All right. Okay. I will. Okay. Okay. All right, great. Well, one of our technicians, Deacon Polk, we want to thank you for making this happen on Zoom. He's also recorded this, so if you want to go back and listen or you want to direct somebody else to go back and listen, they can go to YouTube, bbclawton.org. and find us on YouTube there, or you can go to Bethlehem Baptist Church Facebook, and it'll be there as well. So again, if you want to go over the information or direct somebody who weren't on with us to listen to the information, please do so. But whatever you do, spread the information. We got to get that out there. Also, thank our technicians that are here. You can't see them, but they're behind the panels making it all happen. Appreciate you all as well. So God bless you all. Get out there and vote. Let's make a difference. And until next time, God bless you and may God keep you.